The salty wind from the sea burst through the cracks in the window frames of the old house, carrying with it the smell of seaweed and fish. 20-year-old son Hyman sat at the crooked table, counting crumpled banknotes, the day's earnings from her job at the internet cafe. 43,001. Enough for rice and kimchi for the family for 3 days, if they were careful. Again you brought home pennies, grumbled her mother, Kim So-hee, without looking up from mending the fishing nets. 5 daughters, and each one more useless than the other. A curse upon my head. Hyman pressed her lips together but stayed silent. She had sworn to herself never to become a burden to the family, as her mother always called her. Her 4 younger sisters, Hai Jean, Hai Yun, Hai Ri, and little Hai Su, sat quietly in the corner, pretending to be absorbed in their game with stones. Her father, Sun Dae-won, snored on the old mattress in the corner, reeking of sour soju. Last night he had once again gambled away half the month's fish market earnings. I'll find another job, Hyman said softly, hiding the money in a secret pocket of her skirt. They need an assistant at the library. The library? So he snorted. You think books will get us out of this hole? Better marry off quickly. One less mouth to worry about. Hyman stood up and walked to the door. Behind her, she could hear her mother's usual monologue about how hard it was to raise 5 daughters in poverty. She knew those words by heart. The coastal town of Jumseon was waking up to the cries of seagulls and the sound of waves. Fishermen were returning from their night catch, and their wives hurried to the market to sell the haul. Hyman walked along the narrow alleys, past shabby houses where families as poor as hers lived. The library stood in the center of town, an old stone building dating back to the Japanese colonial era. Hyman loved this place, the only one in Jumseon where she could forget about poverty and escape into other worlds. Hyman called the librarian, an elderly woman named Lee Yang-hwa. Just in time. I have a job for you. The girl stopped at the counter, where Mrs. Lee was arranging new arrivals. I need an assistant for the evening shifts, the librarian continued. The work is simple, help readers find books, keep things tidy. The pay is modest, but steady. 50,000 won a week. 50,000. Hyman could barely hold back a cry of joy. Together with her cafe salary, it would let the family live a little better, maybe even save for the future. I'll take it, she nodded quickly. When do I start? Tomorrow evening. From 6 to 10. Mrs. Lee smiled. And, Hyman, you can borrow books to take home. Read as much as you want. The rest of the day flew by. Hyman helped her mother mend nets, played with her little sisters, and cooked dinner from leftover rice and vegetables. But her thoughts were on the new job and the chance to read books for free. When the family finally fell asleep in the one room of their house, Hyman pulled out a battered notebook and, by the light of a kerosene lamp, began to write. She dreamed of becoming a writer, of creating stories that would make people laugh and cry, hope and dream. Once upon a time there was a girl in a small town by the sea, she wrote in her clumsy handwriting. And she believed that one day her life would change. The next evening, Hyman arrived at the library half an hour before her shift. Mrs. Lee showed her where the registration cards were kept, explained the cataloging system, and introduced her to the basic rules. The most important thing is silence, whispered the librarian. And don't let anyone take books without recording them in the log. Especially students, sly little foxes, all of them. At 6 o'clock, Mrs. Lee left, leaving Hyman alone. The library seemed enormous in the evening twilight. Only a few desk lamps lit the reading tables, where a handful of visitors sat, students preparing for exams, an elderly man reading newspapers, a young woman with a baby in her arms. Hyman settled behind the counter and took out her notebook. Between helping readers, she could work on her story. Around 6:30, a young man entered the library. Hyman lifted her eyes from her notebook and involuntarily caught her breath. The stranger was tall, lean, dressed in an expensive jacket and jeans. But it was his face that struck her, well-defined features, slightly wavy dark hair, and serious eyes behind glasses. He walked past the counter without glancing at Hyman and headed to the far corner of the library, where the law books were shelved. She followed him with her eyes, then scolded herself silently. So what if he was handsome? Guys from rich families didn't even notice girls like her. An hour later, the stranger approached the counter with a thick folder of documents in his hands. "Can I make copies here?" he asked politely. "The machine is in the next room," Hyman replied, pointing the way. 5-1 per page. He nodded and went to copy the documents. Hyman stole glances at him through the open door. He looked nervous, constantly glancing around, as if checking whether someone was following him. When he returned, she noticed his hands were trembling slightly. On the folder's cover she caught a glimpse of the seal of the Jumsian prosecutor's office. "That'll be 751, she said. The young man handed her a 1,001 bill, and their fingers brushed for an instant. A shiver ran down Hyman's spine. "Thank you," he said, taking his change. Up close, his eyes were dark brown with golden flecks. "Do you often work evenings?" "Every day except Sunday." "I see." He hesitated, clearly wanting to add something, but in the end just said goodbye and left. Hyman kept staring out the window until his silhouette disappeared into the evening dusk. Her heart beat so loudly she feared the other readers might hear. For the next 3 days, the young man came to the library at the same time, around 6:30. Always with folders of documents, always with a tense expression. He chose the table in the farthest corner, where no one could see him, and spent hours studying papers, jotting notes in a notebook. Hyman tried to ignore him, but her eyes kept drifting toward his corner. On Thursday evening, curiosity finally got the better of her. Pretending to dust, she walked over to the nearby shelf and began wiping the spines of books. From there, she had a clear view of the documents spread across his table. What she saw made her blood run cold. On the top sheet was a photograph of a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. The caption read, "Prosecutor Park Tae-yun." Hyman knew that name, the most powerful man in Jumsian, feared even by wealthy businessmen. Beside the photo lay bank statements, transcripts of phone calls, and copies of official documents with seals. At the very bottom of the stack were case files on the death of Sun Dae-gun. Hyman nearly dropped the rag. Sun Dae-gun, her uncle, her father's brother. 15 years ago, he had drowned under mysterious circumstances. The family had always suspected it wasn't an accident, but they had no proof. "What are you doing here?" Hyman flinched. The young man stood beside her, suspicion and alarm in his voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." She stammered, her face burning. He quickly gathered the papers back into the folder. "Did you see anything?" "I saw my uncle's name," Hyman admitted. "Sun Dae-gun. He died 15 years ago." The young man froze. Then he slowly sat down, took off his glasses, and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Your uncle," he muttered. "God, what an irony. What do you mean?" He looked at her for a long time, clearly weighing whether he should tell the truth. "My name is Park Sun-hun," he finally said. "Prosecutor Park Tae-yun is my father." Hyman felt the ground slipping from under her feet. The prosecutor's son. The very man her family suspected of being involved in her uncle's death. "And you are Sun Hyman," Sun-hun continued. "Niece of the man my father most likely killed." The silence in the library was deafening. Somewhere, an old clock ticked, and the floor creaked under the steps of the last visitors. "Killed?" Hyman whispered. Sun-hun nodded, opening the folder. "I have documents. Your uncle was gathering evidence of corruption in the fishing port, illegal shipments, fake licenses, bribes to officials." A week before his death, he handed copies of the materials to the central prosecutor's office in Seoul. And what happened? The documents disappeared. And 3 days later, your uncle was found dead in the water near the breakwaters. The official version, an accident, he slipped on wet rocks. Hyman sank onto the chair beside him. Her legs no longer held her. But I have a witness statement, Sun Han continued. An old fisherman saw 2 men arguing with your uncle on the pier that night. By morning, he was dead. Why are you collecting all this? Hyman asked. He's your father. Pain distorted Sun Han's face. Because in 15 years, he hasn't changed. Bribes, forged documents, pressure on witnesses. My father has turned the Jumseon prosecutor's office into a tool of his personal power. And I can't stand it anymore. He pulled out a few more documents. Look. Here's a certificate that fish trader Kim Chan-su's family voluntarily transferred their business to competitors. And here, testimony from a witness who saw my father's men beating Mr. Kim in the courthouse basement. He's supposed to uphold the law, Hyman whispered. He is. But instead, he breaks it. More brazenly each year. Sun Han put the documents away and looked at Hyman. What will you do now? Go to him and tell him about our meeting? Why would I? Well, he's your father. Hyman shook her head. Uncle Dae-gun was a kind man. He was the only one in the family who helped us when my father started drinking. He brought rice, fish, toys for my little sisters. And after his death, we were left completely alone. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her voice remained firm. If your father killed him, then I want him punished. No matter who you are. The next day, Sun Han didn't come to the library. Nor on Saturday. Hyman tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept returning to their conversation. Would she never see him again? On Sunday, her day off, she went to the market to help her father sell fish. Sunday 1 was surprisingly sober. He had won at cards yesterday and was in high spirits. Hyman, get the change for that auntie, he said, pointing at an elderly customer. The girl wrapped the fish in newspaper and took the money. At that moment, a tall young man in a dark jacket approached the stall. Sun Han. Hyman barely held back an exclamation. He nodded to her and addressed her father. Uncle, may I buy some fresh mackerel? Of course, son. Sunday 1 beamed. I've got the best fish in the whole market. Hyman, pick a bigger one for the boy. While Hyman was choosing the fish, Sun Han said quietly, I need to talk to you. It's important. When? Tonight. In the park by the old lighthouse. Her father took the money and patted Sun Han on the shoulder warmly. Come again, lad. We always have fresh catch. If only he knew who he was speaking to, he wouldn't have been so welcoming. That evening, Hyman told her mother she was visiting a friend and went to the park. The old lighthouse had long stopped working, but townsfolk loved the place for its quiet and its view of the sea. Sun Han was already waiting, sitting on a bench. In his hands was the familiar folder of documents. Thank you for coming, he said as Hyman approached. I have a proposal for you. A rather strange one. What kind? He hesitated, choosing his words. My father plans to marry me off to Judge Kang Mi-yun's daughter. It's a strategic marriage. It will strengthen his position in the court system. The wedding is set for next month. And what's strange about that? Rich people always marry for convenience. I don't want to marry Mi-yun. Not at all. And I also need time to finish gathering evidence against my father. If I marry, he'll relax and stop watching my every step. Hyman didn't understand where he was going. I need a girlfriend, Sun Han went on. One who will ruin his plans and force him to postpone the wedding. And be my girlfriend. Temporarily, for appearances. Hyman stared at him. Are you out of your mind? Think about it. The daughter of a poor fish seller dating the prosecutor's son. It'll be a scandal. My father will be furious and do everything to break us apart. And that's exactly the time I need. And what do I get out of it? Sun Hun pulled an envelope from his pocket. Money. 500,000 won for a month. Plus nice clothes, dinners and restaurants, everything a rich man's girlfriend is supposed to have. 500,000. More than her whole family earned in 3 months. And what do I have to do? Act like we're a couple. Go on public dates with me so people see us. Maybe even meet my father a few times. Once he realizes I'm serious, he'll start making moves. Hyman stayed silent, weighing the offer. On one hand, it was madness. On the other, that money could change her family's life. And then what? When you're done gathering evidence against your father? We'll break up. Tell everyone we just weren't compatible. And you'll marry the judge's daughter? Sun Han shook his head. No. By then, my father will be under arrest, and I'll be free to choose a wife for love. There was so much conviction in his words that Hyman almost believed him. Fine, she said. But I have one condition. What is it? You help me find proof that your father killed my uncle. And when the time comes, I want to be there when he's arrested. Sun Han extended his hand for a shake. Deal. Their palms met, and once again Hyman felt a strange warmth. She tried to remind herself it was only business. But her heart beat in a way that was anything but businesslike. The next day, after her shift at the internet cafe, Hyman came home to find a large box on the table. This came for you, her mother said, eyeing the expensive packaging with suspicion. Some young man. Said your friends? Hyman opened the box. Inside lay a beautiful blue dress, low-heeled shoes, and an elegant handbag. In a separate envelope was a note, for tomorrow. Meet me at the Sea Breeze restaurant at 7. Sun Hun. Since when do you have such wealthy friends? Her mother asked suspiciously. Met him at the library, Hyman replied evasively. He's a student. Her younger sisters gazed at the dress in awe. Can I try it on? Hygiene asked. No, Hyman said firmly. It's for tomorrow. She locked herself in the tiny storage room that served as her bedroom and tried on the outfit. The dress fit perfectly, as if it had been tailored just for her. The mirror reflected a stranger, elegant, beautiful, nothing like the daughter of a poor fisherman. The next evening, Hyman approached the Sea Breeze restaurant with her heart pounding. It was the most expensive place in Jumseon, visited only by wealthy tourists and the local elite. Sun Han was waiting for her at the entrance in a light suit. When he saw Hyman, he nodded approvingly. You look great. Ready for the show? What if I mess it up? You won't. Just be yourself. They entered the restaurant. The maitre d' bowed respectfully and led them to a table by the window. Hyman tried to appear confident, but her hands trembled despite her efforts. Relax, Sun Hun said quietly when the waiter handed them menus. Imagine we're really on a date. But that was the hardest thing to imagine. Hyman had never been on a real date. There had never been time for romance when she had to work for a living. What will you order? Asked Sun Hun. Hyman stared at the menu in confusion. The dish names were written in both Korean and English, but the prices. One dinner here cost as much as her family spent on food in a whole week. Order for me, please, she said. I don't really know what's good. Sun Hun ordered grilled salmon, a seafood salad, and a bottle of white wine. When the waiter left, he leaned closer to Hyman. Do you see the man at the next table? The one with glasses and a mustache? Hyman glanced discreetly. At the next table sat an elegant middle-aged gentleman in an expensive suit. That's Mr. Lim, the deputy mayor. And beside him is his wife. They'll definitely tell all their acquaintances that they saw the prosecutor's son with an unfamiliar girl. And if they ask who I am, I'll tell them the truth. The daughter of fishmonger's son day one, working at the library. The more truth, the fewer suspicions. The food arrived. Hyman carefully tasted the salmon, tender, fragrant, nothing like the simple fried fish she ate at home. Is it good? Asked Sun Hun. Very. But strange to eat fish that costs more than our weekly catch. For the first time in all their meetings, he smiled. And how did you decide to become a writer? How do you know? I saw your notebook at the library. And the way you look at people, like you're studying them for future stories. Hyman was surprised at his sharp observation. Books are a way to escape reality. In them, you can be anyone, live anywhere. And also, I want to tell stories about people like my family. About those no one notices. That's noble. And you? Why study international relations instead of law? Sun Hun's face darkened. Because I don't want to become like my father. Law, in his hands, is a tool of power, not of justice. They talked about books, films, dreams. To her surprise, Hyman found that Sun Hun was an interesting conversationalist, well-read and intelligent. Little by little, she relaxed and began to enjoy the evening. Hyman. A familiar voice suddenly called out. She turned and saw Park Min-jun, her classmate, who worked as a waiter at a nearby cafe. Wow, you look amazing, he exclaimed, staring at her outfit. I thought you'd be stuck in those old jeans forever. Hyman felt her cheeks burn. Sun Hun rose and politely extended his hand. Park Sun Hun. Nice to meet you. Park? Min-jun shook the offered hand, then his eyes widened in surprise. Wait. Park Sun Hun? The prosecutor's son? Yes. Min-jun glanced from Sun Hun to Hyman and back again, confusion written all over his face. Well, I'll be. Hyman, you sure learned quickly how to live the high life. Min-jun, don't, she whispered. I'm not saying anything. Just surprised. Yesterday you were counting coins at the market, and today you're dining at the most expensive restaurant in town. Calmly, Sun Hun sat back down. Your friend seems concerned about you. Former classmate, Hyman corrected. All right then, I won't bother you. Min-jun headed to the door but turned back at the threshold. Just be careful, Hyman. Rich guys rarely marry poor girls. When he left, an awkward silence lingered. Sorry, murmured Hyman. He didn't mean to. It's fine. He's right, you should be careful. The rest of dinner passed quietly. Sun Hun paid the bill and escorted Hyman to the bus stop. Tomorrow we'll meet at the library, he said at parting. I'll show you new documents. Hyman got on the bus and stared out the window the whole way home, thinking about what had happened. Min-jun's words stuck in her mind like a thorn. Rich guys rarely marry poor girls. But she wasn't planning to marry him. This was just business. Right? The next evening at the library, Sun Hun showed Hyman new materials. Among the documents was the interrogation protocol of the fisherman who had seen her uncle the night he died. An old man named Cho Byung-soo, explained Sun Hun. He's 78 now, living in a nursing home. I spoke with him. And what did he say? That 15 years ago, men came to him demanding he keep quiet about what he'd seen. First they offered money, then they threatened him. Hyman carefully read Grandpa Cho's testimony. It says here he saw two men in dark clothes. They were arguing with my uncle, and then one of them pushed him into the water. Yes. And when the old man tried to file a police report, they told him it was nothing but hallucinations of a drunk. But Grandpa Cho never drank. Everyone in the fishing community knows he's a teetotaler. Exactly. But in the interrogation record, it says the witness was intoxicated. Hyman felt anger boiling inside her. So my uncle tried to seek justice, and your father not only killed him but slandered the only witness? I'm afraid so. Sun Hun closed the folder. But for now we don't have enough evidence for court. We need physical proof, recordings, testimony from other witnesses. Where can we get them? I'm working on it. My father's office has a safe with incriminating materials. Somehow, I need to get access to it. Hyman thought for a moment. What if we asked Grandpa Cho to testify again? Now, after so many years? He's afraid. Still afraid. Says he's too old to fight powerful people. Then we need to find other witnesses. Easier said than done. Everyone who knew something about your uncle's work either left town or is dead too. A chill ran down Hyman's spine. How many? 3 were found dead under suspicious circumstances within a year after your uncle's death. Officially, accidents or suicides. Oh my God. My father doesn't leave witnesses, Hyman. If he finds out we're gathering evidence against him. He didn't finish the thought, but it was clear enough. Maybe we should stop? Hyman whispered. It's too dangerous. No. Steel rang in Sun Hun's voice. I won't let him keep killing innocent people. Your uncle wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. Hyman looked at this young man, ready to sacrifice everything for justice, and felt her heart tighten with unexpected tenderness. And if your father finds out about our meetings? Then we'll have to act faster. Sun Hun gathered the documents. By the way, tomorrow's Saturday. Would you like to go to the theater? The theater? Hyman was surprised. People need to see us together. The more, the better. Besides, half the city's elite will be there. I've never been to the theater. Then this will be a real first time. There was something so warm in his smile that Hyman felt her cheeks flush. On Saturday evening, Hyman put on another beautiful dress, this time a black, elegant one, and went to the city theater. The building was dazzling with luxury, marble columns, crystal chandeliers, carpets. Sun Hun was waiting for her in the foyer, impeccable in a black suit and white shirt. Romeo and Juliet, he said, offering his hand. I hope you'll enjoy it. They climbed the wide staircase to the VIP box. Hyman could feel people's eyes on her, some gazed with curiosity, others with disapproval. Don't mind them, Sun Hun whispered. They're just jealous. But Hyman knew it wasn't jealousy. The rich never welcomed outsiders into their circle. The play was magnificent. Hyman forgot all her worries, immersed in the tragic story of love. The scene where Juliet drank the poison, choosing death over life without her beloved, struck her most deeply. What are you thinking about? Sun Hun asked during the intermission. That love can be a terrifying force. It makes people sacrifice everything. Even life? Even life. They spoke quietly, but Hyman noticed that an elegant lady in the neighboring box was listening attentively. In the second act, when Romeo found Juliet dead and chose to follow her, Hyman couldn't hold back her tears. Sun Hun silently handed her a handkerchief. Thank you, she whispered. Their fingers brushed, and once again that strange shiver ran through her. After the play, a middle-aged man with a commanding face and cold eyes approached them in the foyer. Sun Hun, he said evenly. Won't you introduce me to your companion? Hyman felt Sun Hun tense beside her. Father. His voice had turned formal. This is Sun Hyman. Hyman, my father, prosecutor Park Tae-yong. It took all of Hyman's strength not to recoil. There he was, the man who had killed her uncle. Tall, distinguished, dressed in an expensive suit. Nothing about him seemed outwardly sinister, yet his eyes held an icy emptiness. A pleasure, she lied, extending her hand. The prosecutor shook it, and goosebumps prickled Hyman's skin. "Son Hyman," he said thoughtfully, "is your father, by any chance, Sunday one? The fishmonger from the Eastern Market?" "Yes." "I see." The prosecutor looked her over with an assessing gaze. "And how long have you known my son?" "Not long," Hyman answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "I see," repeated the prosecutor. Then he turned to his son. "Son Hun, come to my office tomorrow. We need to talk." "About what?" "I think you know." The prosecutor turned and left, leaving behind a trail of expensive cologne and a heavy sense of danger. "That's it," Son Hun said quietly. "He knows. Tomorrow the Real game begins." Outside, he walked Hyman to a taxi. "Be careful," he warned. "My father didn't ask about your name for nothing. He suspects something." "And you?" "I'll defend myself. And if anything happens, call me immediately." He gave her his phone number and helped her into the car. On the way home, Hyman kept glancing back, checking if anyone was following. Meeting the prosecutor left her with a heavy feeling, as if she had touched something poisonous. On Sunday morning, Hyman woke to loud voices in the yard. Looking out the window, she saw two men in dark suits talking to her father. Sunday one looked frightened and confused. "What's happening?" asked Hyman, coming out of the house. "These gentlemen are from the tax office," her father explained. "They say we have problems with the documents." One of the men, tall and thin, turned to Hyman. "Are you son Hyman?" "Yes." "We need to discuss financial violations with your family." He pulled out a folder of documents. "Your father hasn't filed income declarations for the past 3 years." "But he's a fisherman," Hyman protested. "He doesn't have steady income, only what he manages to sell." "Nevertheless, the law requires declarations," said the other man, heavier set, opening his folder. "And we also have information that your father has been engaging in illegal trade." "What illegal trade?" "Selling fish without the proper licenses." "Tax evasion." "Possible ties to smugglers." Sunday one went pale. "I'm an honest man. I've never broken the law." "That remains to be seen," the tall man said coldly. "For now, you've been issued a fine of 5 million won. And this is only the beginning." 5 million. The family didn't even have half that amount. "And if we can't pay?" asked Hyman. "Then the case goes to court. And the court may impose prison time." The men left, throwing the family into shock. When the mother heard about the fine, she burst into tears. The younger sisters huddled together in fear. "What will we do?" wailed Kim So-hee. "Where will we find so much money?" Hyman understood it was no coincidence. Yesterday's meeting with the prosecutor, his questions about her family, it was all connected. He had begun to act. That evening she called Son Hun. "The tax office came to us," she told him. "They demand a 5 million fine and threaten prison." "I thought so." Son Hun's voice was grim. "This is my father's revenge for our relationship." "And what did he say to you?" "He demanded I end our meetings immediately. Threatened to disinherit me and throw me out of the house." "And what did you answer?" "That I'm an adult and choose who I see." Son Hun paused. "Hyman, maybe we should stop. I don't want your family to suffer because of me." "No," she said firmly. "Now it's personal. Your father thinks he can scare us, just like he scared my uncle. But he's wrong." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. In fact, I think we need to apply more pressure. Let him believe our relationship is serious." "What do you suggest?" "Tomorrow evening, come to my house. Officially meet my parents. Let the whole neighborhood see that the prosecutor's son is courting a fisherman's daughter. That will be a provocation. That's exactly what we want. After hanging up, Hyman felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The game was becoming more dangerous, but it was too late to turn back. On Monday evening, Hyman spent the whole day preparing for Sun Hun's visit. Her mother grumbled that there was nothing to serve the rich groom, but still cooked the best she could: fried fish, vegetable soup, and fresh rice. "And don't you dare embarrass us," she lectured her daughter. "Sit up straight, speak politely, don't interrupt your elders." Her father was nervous all day, constantly adjusting his only festive shirt. "Do you think he's serious about this?" he asked. Rich men like to play with poor girls. At 7 in the evening, a black car stopped in the yard. Sun Hun stepped out with a bouquet of flowers and a box of expensive sweets. He was dressed simply, in jeans and a sweater, but even in such clothes, he looked completely out of place in their poor neighborhood. The neighbors peeked out of their windows, curiously watching the guest. "Good evening," Sun Hun bowed politely as he entered the house. "My name is Park Sun Hun. Thank you for inviting me. Please, come in." Father bustled around. "He-min has told us a lot about you." Sun Hun handed the flowers to Mother and the sweets to the younger sisters. The girls gazed at him in admiration, such a handsome young man they had only ever seen on television. At dinner, conversation didn't flow. The parents were clearly shy, and Sun Hun did his best to act like an ordinary guy. "And what does your father do?" asked Sun Dae-won. "He works in the prosecutor's office," Sun Hun replied. "Legal matters." "Oh. So, an important man. And what does he think about your relationship with our He-min?" He-min saw Sun Hun's shoulders tense. "We haven't discussed that matter in detail yet." "I see," Father nodded. "Probably he wants you to marry someone from your own circle." "Perhaps. But I choose for myself whom to love." The word love sounded so natural that He-min felt her heart skip a beat. Of course, he was just playing a role, but it sounded very convincing. After dinner, they stepped outside to get some fresh air. Sun Hun helped He-min hang the washed laundry on the line. "Do you think the neighbors have already seen everything?" she asked quietly. "I'm sure. Tomorrow the whole neighborhood will be discussing how the prosecutor's son helped dry the fisherman's daughter's laundry. And what will your father say when the rumors reach him? Most likely, he'll try to intimidate you. Be ready." Sun Hun stayed until 10 in the evening, playing with the younger sisters and helping Father mend a fishing net. When he left, the whole family escorted him to the car. "Come again." Little Hisu shouted. "You're nice." "I'll definitely come," Sun Hun promised. Watching him leave, He-min felt a strange emptiness. As if something important and bright had just left the house. "A good boy," Mother said when they went back inside. "But I'm afraid he's not for our circle." "Why?" "Two different worlds, daughter. Sooner or later, he'll realize that." He-min kept silent, but in her heart she knew Mother was right. Sun Hun belonged to another world, a world where people didn't count every coin or patch clothes until they wore out. The next day, on Tuesday, 2 cars pulled up to the family's house. 4 men in dark suits stepped out, the same tax inspectors and 2 strangers. Sun Dae-won. One of them called loudly. "Come out, we need to talk." Father went out into the yard, with He-min following. "What now?" Father asked nervously. "We have new information," said the tall thin man who had come on Sunday. "Your family is under suspicion of tax evasion." He showed forged documents. "But that's not all. My investigation has revealed your father's connections with smugglers." "That's a lie," He-min exclaimed. "Quiet, girl. The adults are talking." The man gave her a cold look. "We have witnesses who saw your father receiving strange packages from unknown people." "What packages? What people?" "We're not disclosing that yet." But if your family doesn't end certain connections, the case may lead to an arrest. The threat was veiled but clear. Either Hemin stopped seeing Sun Hun, or her father would be imprisoned. What do you want? Hemin asked directly. We want some people to understand their place, and not to stick their noses where they're not welcome. After the men left, father sat for a long time in silence, his face buried in his hands. Hemin, he finally said. Maybe you should listen to them? What if this boy really isn't for you? Father. I don't want to go to prison, daughter. Who will feed the family? Hemin realized she could no longer keep silent. She told her parents everything, about who Sun Hun really was, about Uncle Dae-gun's case, and about the fact that their relationship wasn't real. Oh my God, Mother whispered. So the prosecutor really did kill Dae-gun? Yes. And now he's trying to scare us the same way he did 15 years ago. Then we must go to the police. Mother, the prosecutor is the police in our city. Who will listen to us? Father lifted his head. And what does this boy suggest? Sun Hun? To gather evidence and hand it over to the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Seoul. And you're helping him? Yes. Sun Dae-won was silent for a long time, then nodded firmly. Then continue. Dae-gun was a good man. He deserves justice. But father, what if they arrest you? Then they arrest me. But I won't let that bastard keep trampling honest people. That evening, Hemin met Sun Hun in the park near the lighthouse. They came to us again today, she told him. They threatened to arrest father. I know. My father's been in a great mood all day. He probably thinks he's scared you. And what do we do next? Sun Hun pulled a new folder from his bag. I have a plan. In a week, there will be a big holiday in the city, the Sea Festival. Journalists and guests from other towns will come. My father will give an official speech. And we'll announce our engagement. Right at the festival, in front of everyone. Hemin nearly choked. Engagement? A fake one, of course. But father will believe we've decided to marry despite his threats. That will drive him over the edge. And then he'll make a mistake. He'll try something publicly, in front of witnesses. And then we'll catch him. The plan was risky, but they had no other choice. Time was working against them. Every day the prosecutor pressed harder on Hemin's family. All right, she agreed. But this time, buy me a truly beautiful dress. If we're going to fake an engagement, we should do it in style. Sun Hun smiled. Of course. The most beautiful dress in the city. When they said goodbye, Hemin suddenly realized that the idea of a fake engagement didn't seem all that unpleasant to her. And that was truly frightening. The following week flew by in feverish preparation. Every day, Sun Hun brought Hemin new documents he had secretly copied from his father's office. The prosecutor's list of victims turned out to be much longer than they had imagined. Look, he showed her the bank statements. In the past 5 years, more than 2 billion won have been deposited into my father's personal account from unknown sources. Bribes? Definitely. And these are the documents on land sales at undervalued prices. Officially, shell companies bought the land, and then resold it at 10 times the cost. Hemin studied the papers, trying to memorize every detail. And what's this list? The names of judges, police officers, and officials who receive regular payments for their silence. An entire corruption network. My God, he controls half the city. That's exactly why he's so hard to stop. Too many influential people are interested in keeping him in his position. On Thursday, Sun Hun brought him in a box with a dress for the festival. Inside was a work of art, a white silk gown with embroidery that probably cost more than her family's yearly income. This is too expensive, she protested. Nothing is too expensive for my fiancé, Sun Han replied with a smile. The word fiancé made Hemin's heart beat faster, even though she understood it was just a game. On Friday evening, the day before the festival, Hemin was working at the library when a stranger walked in. Medium height, unremarkable, in a worn jacket, at first glance, just another visitor. "Where can I find books on history?" he asked. Hemin pointed the way, but something about this man made her uneasy. He was studying her too intently, as if memorizing her appearance. Half an hour later, the man came up to the desk. "Are you Sun Hemin?" "Yes." "And who are you?" "A friend of the family." He leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Be careful tomorrow." "Very careful." "What do you mean?" "There will be many people at the festival. In a crowd, it's easy to arrange an accident." A chill ran down Hemin's spine. "Are you threatening me?" "On the contrary, I'm warning you. Influential people have long arms. Think carefully if it's worth appearing in public tomorrow." The man turned and left the library, leaving Hemin in shock. She immediately called Sun Han. "Some man came to me," she said anxiously. "He warned me about danger at the festival." "Damn," Sun Han swore. "That means father is planning something serious. Maybe we should cancel the engagement?" "No. This only proves we're on the right track. He's afraid, otherwise he wouldn't bother threatening. But if something happens..." "Nothing will happen. I won't let it." There was such certainty in Sun Han's voice that Hemin almost believed him. Saturday turned out sunny and warm, the perfect weather for a celebration. The main square of Jumsan was decorated with flags and garlands, food and souvenir stalls were everywhere. On the stage, local performers entertained the crowd, and fishing competitions were held at the port. Hemin spent the whole day preparing. Her mother helped with her makeup and hairstyle, while her younger sisters gasped in admiration at the sight of her in the white gown. "You look like a princess," little Hisu said. "Only princesses marry princes," Hemin replied sadly. "And I'm just a fisherman's daughter." "But you're kind and smart. Isn't that enough?" From a child's mouth, those words sounded especially piercing. At 6 in the evening, Sun Han arrived for Hemin. He looked stunning in a light suit, holding a bouquet of white roses. "Ready?" he asked. "No. But let's go anyway." They arrived at the square when the festival was at its peak. Thousands of people strolled between stalls, children ran with balloons, and young people danced to the music. "Look at all the journalists," Sun Han pointed to the people with cameras. "Perfect. The more witnesses, the better." They walked around the square, holding hands. Many turned their heads, recognizing the prosecutor's son, and curiously studied his companion. At 8 o'clock, the city mayor went on stage to open the official part of the program. Then came speeches from representatives of various organizations. Finally, it was Prosecutor Park Tae-yong's turn. "Dear citizens," his voice boomed through the speakers. "Today we celebrate not only the gifts of the sea, but also the unity of our community. Jumsan is a city that respects traditions and family values." Hemin listened to his speech about family values and felt nauseous. This man had killed her uncle, destroyed dozens of families, and now he spoke about morality and justice. "Therefore I urge everyone to cherish what is dear to us, and not allow outsiders to destroy our order," the prosecutor concluded, to the crowd's applause. "He's talking about us," Hemin whispered. "I know. And now we'll answer him." As the prosecutor stepped off the stage, Sun Han took Hemin by the hand and led her to the microphone. "Sun Han, what are you doing?" his father called out. "What I should have done long ago." They climbed the stage under the astonished gaze of the crowd. Sun Han took the microphone. "Dear citizens, today is a special day not only for our city, but also for me personally." His voice was firm and confident. I want to announce my engagement to the most wonderful girl in the world, Sun He-min. Excited cries echoed through the crowd. Sun Hun pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. He-min, will you marry me? He-min looked at him, her whole body frozen. In that moment, she wanted to forget it was all just an act and simply say yes with all her heart. Yes, she whispered, and the microphone carried her words. Sun Hun slipped a diamond ring onto her finger, real, she realized when she felt its weight. Then he rose and kissed her. It was their first kiss, and it was anything but staged. Sun Hun's lips were warm and gentle, and in his eyes she saw something that made her heart pound wildly. The crowd erupted in applause. Journalists clicked their cameras, capturing the sensational news: the prosecutor's son was marrying a fisherman's daughter. Only prosecutor Park Tae-yong stood thunderstruck, his face white with rage. After the festival, Sun Hun escorted He-min home. They were silent the entire way, too many emotions overwhelmed them both. Is the ring real? He-min finally asked. Yes. I bought it this morning. But why? We agreed this was a fake engagement. Sun Hun stopped the car near her house. He-min, there are things I need to tell you. But not now. First, we have to finish with my father. What do you mean? Later. I promise. He walked her to the door. The whole family was waiting to hear the news. Show the ring. The younger sisters shouted. He-min held out her hand, and the diamond sparkled in the lamplight. Oh my God, Mother whispered. It's huge. So it's serious, then? Father asked. Yes, He-min replied, not sure if she was telling the truth. That night she lay awake for a long time, replaying the day's events in her mind. Especially the kiss. Was it part of the performance, or was there something real in it? On Sunday morning, she was woken by a phone call. A strange male voice said, "Listen carefully. You have 24 hours to return the ring and announce the breakup of the engagement. Otherwise, your family will regret it." Who is this? But the line had already gone dead. He-min immediately tried to call Sun Hun, but his phone didn't answer. She tried several more times, with the same result. By noon, a minibus with the signed city sanitation service pulled up to their house. Men in white coats got out and began unloading equipment. What's going on? Father asked. Sanitary inspection, replied the leader of the group. We received complaints about unsanitary conditions in this house. What complaints? Who complained? That information is confidential. The men in coats carried out a check, took water samples, inspected the house, and declared that the building did not meet the standards and was subject to demolition. You have 1 month to relocate, said the leader. After that, the house will be demolished as hazardous. But where will we go? Mother asked in despair. We don't have money for rent. That's not our problem. In the evening, after the sanitarians left, another car arrived at the house. 2 men in dark suits got out, the same tax inspectors. There's news about your case, announced the tall, thin man. The investigation has uncovered additional violations. The fine has been increased to 15 million won. 15 million? He-min gasped. And that's not all. Tomorrow morning, Sunday, one must appear at the prosecutor's office to testify in a smuggling case. I've never been involved in smuggling. That will be determined during the investigation. For now, you are forbidden to leave the city. When the men left, the family sat in heavy silence. The house marked for demolition, father summoned to the prosecutor's office on fabricated charges, a 15 million won fine. He-min, mother said quietly. Maybe we should listen? Return the ring and break off the engagement? Never, He-min answered firmly. That's exactly what the prosecutor wants. If we give in now, he'll know he can intimidate anyone. And if we don't? Then we'll fight to the end. He-min knew she was saying brave words, but deep down she was terrified. Prosecutor Park Tae-yong turned out to be even more ruthless than she had imagined. On Monday morning, He-min was awakened by a knock at the door. On the porch stood an elderly woman she had never seen before. "Are you Sun He-min?" the stranger asked. "My name is Lee Jong-hwa. I'm a housekeeper in the Park family's home. What do you want?" "The young master asked me to give you this." The woman handed her a sealed envelope and quickly left. He-min tore it open with trembling fingers. "He-min, Father found out about my plans. Last night he forced me to sign consent for involuntary treatment in a private clinic. In the morning they'll take me there under the pretext of a nervous breakdown. I don't know how long I'll last. All the documents are hidden in the library, and the book History of Korea on shelf A. Be careful. I love you. Sun Hun." The last lines made He-min's heart stop. I love you. Could it really be true? She immediately went to the library. Mrs. Lee met her anxiously. He-min ah. People from the prosecutor's office were here. They asked if the young man had left any documents. And what did you say? That I didn't know anything. But they searched the reading room and confiscated several books. He-min's heart sank. Could the documents be gone? Which books? On history and law. Strange, the prosecutor's office usually isn't interested in our old books. He-min went to shelf A. The book History of Korea wasn't there. Mrs. Lee, did they take the history book too? No, they didn't touch that one. It's on another shelf. We rearranged things last week. The librarian showed her the new spot. He-min took the book and carefully flipped through it. In the middle, a hollow had been neatly cut, and inside lay a flash drive. Did you find what you were looking for? Mrs. Lee asked. Yes. Thank you. He-min slipped the flash drive into her pocket and hurried home. She needed to examine the documents immediately and decide what to do next. At home, bad news awaited her. Father had indeed been called to the prosecutor's office and had already been giving testimony for 4 hours. Mother paced the room in tears, while the younger sisters huddled together in fear. What if they arrest him? Kim So-hee wailed. What will we do? They won't arrest him, He-min said firmly. I won't allow it. She locked herself in the storage room with the old laptop she had bought with Sun Hun's money and opened the flash drive. There were dozens of documents, bank records, recorded conversations, photographs, witness statements. And most importantly, a detailed plan for transferring all the materials to the anti-corruption agency. Sun Hun had thought everything through. But to carry out the plan, he had to be free. And he was being held in some clinic under guard. He-min reread the letter. I love you. Those words gave her strength. Sun Hun was risking everything for justice and for her. That meant she had to risk everything too. In the evening, Father returned home exhausted and frightened. They know everything, he said, sinking into a chair. About He-min's meetings with Sun Hun, about our discussions of Dae-gun's case. And more. They showed me photographs. What photographs? Me with some men near the port. They say they're smugglers and that I was supposedly taking money from them. But that's a lie. Of course it's a lie. But the photos look very convincing. They're probably fake, but how do we prove it? He-min realized they were almost out of time. Tomorrow the prosecutor could arrest Father, and then the family would be completely broken. Father, we need to leave the city, she said resolutely. At least for a while. Where? We have no money, no friends in other cities. There's one person who can help. He-min remembered Grandpa Cho Byung-soo, the only living witness of her Uncle Dae-gun's murder. Maybe he knew other people who had suffered at the hands of the prosecutor. The next day, leaving the younger sisters with a neighbor, He-min and her parents went to the nursing home on the outskirts of the city. Grandpa Cho welcomed them into his small room. "Son He-min," he whispered, studying the girl. "You look so much like your uncle. The same eyes, the same stubborn chin." "Grandpa, we need your help," said He-min. "Prosecutor Park Tae-yong is threatening our family again." "I know. I heard about your engagement to his son." "Brave girl. We have proof of his crimes. But we need witnesses who are willing to testify." The old man was silent for a long time, staring out the window. 15 years ago, I was a coward," he finally said. "I was afraid of threats and kept quiet. Because of my silence, that bastard killed several more people. Grandpa. But now I'm 78. What can he do to me? Kill me? Well, I'll die soon anyway. At least my conscience will be clear." Cho Byung-soo opened an old chest of drawers and pulled out a notebook. "Here are the names of everyone who suffered at Prosecutor Park's hands. I've been gathering this information for 15 years, thinking it might come in handy someday." Hyman took the notebook. There were more than 40 names with detailed descriptions of how each of those people had been deceived, robbed, or intimidated. "Many are no longer alive," said the old man. "But some are still here. And I think they're ready to talk. Will you help us find them?" "Of course. But first tell me about your fiancé. Does he really want to stop his father?" Hyman told him everything, about Sun Hun's secret documents, about his plan to expose the prosecutor, about how he was now being kept in a clinic. "A good young man," the grandfather nodded. "Not everyone would go against their own father for the sake of justice." "Grandpa, do you know where they might be holding him?" "There's a private clinic outside the city. The prosecutor often sends people there under the pretext of treatment if they get in his way. It's a quiet place, heavily guarded." "Is it possible to get in?" "Theoretically, yes. But very dangerous." Hyman looked at her parents. In her father's eyes there was exhaustion, in her mother's, fear. They had already endured so much. "All right," she said firmly. "Then we start acting." Over the next 2 days, Grandpa Cho Byung-soo helped the Sun family contact several of the prosecutor's victims. It turned out that many of them had only been waiting for the chance to take revenge. Madam Pak Sun-ja had lost her husband after he tried to expose corruption at the fishing port. Officially, suicide, but the widow was certain her husband had been killed. Mr. Kim Chan-soo, the fish trader who had been forced to sell his business, was ready to tell how the prosecutor's men had beaten him in the basement of the courthouse. An elderly fisherman, Lee Dok-soo, had seen bags thrown into the sea, bags that later turned out to contain the bodies of inconvenient witnesses. Altogether, 8 people were willing to testify. That was enough to initiate a criminal case. "But first we need to rescue Sun Hun," said Hyman. "Without him and his documents, the case won't hold." Grandpa Cho drew a sketch of the clinic from memory. The building has 3 floors, with guards on the first. Patients are kept on the second and third floors. The grounds are fenced, but there's a gap on the forest side. And how do we know which room Sun Hun is in? You'll have to get inside and look. Or find a staff member willing to help. The plan was simple and reckless. Hyman would break into the clinic, find Sun Hun, and help him escape. Meanwhile, the witnesses would head to Seoul and file complaints with the Anti-Corruption Bureau. "This is suicide," said her father when Hyman told him the plan. "If they catch you." "They won't. And if they do, I'll say I came to visit my fiancé." "Hyman, her mother took her hands. "Do you really love this boy?" Hyman hesitated. When all this began, she had only thought about the money and the chance to help her family. But gradually, something changed. Sun Hun had become not just an employer or a partner in the case against the prosecutor. He had become important. "Yes," she answered honestly. I love him. Then go. But be careful. On Thursday evening, Hyman dressed in dark clothes and took a bus to the clinic. The building really did stand in the forest, 20 kilometers from the city. A tall fence, guards, surveillance cameras. Hyman circled the grounds and found the gap in the fence Grandpa Cho had mentioned. The hole was hidden by bushes, but big enough to squeeze through. She waited until the guard walked past the building, then slipped inside. Her heart pounded so loudly it felt like the whole forest could hear it. The back door wasn't locked. Apparently, the staff didn't expect anyone to want to break into a psychiatric clinic. Hyman carefully stepped inside. The corridors were dimly lit, smelling of medicine and disinfectant. Somewhere, she heard muffled voices of nurses, but mostly there was silence. Hyman went up to the second floor. The rooms were numbered, but how to know which one was Sun Hun's? She carefully peeked through the small windows, but saw only sleeping patients, elderly or clearly ill. On the third floor it was quieter and darker. This was where the special patients were kept, those confined for non-medical reasons. In one room, Hyman saw a familiar silhouette. Sun Hun lay on a narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. He looked pale and tired, but alive. Hyman carefully tried the door, locked. She tapped gently on the glass. Sun Hun turned his head and saw her. His eyes widened in surprise, then lit up with joy. He came to the door, and they looked at each other through the glass. Hyman pressed her hand against the window, and he mirrored her gesture. "How did you get here?" he mouthed. "I broke in," she mouthed back. "Dangerous." "I don't care." Sun Hun pointed at the lock. Hyman tried to force it, but it was too strong. Then she pulled a hairpin from her pocket and began fiddling with the mechanism, a skill she had picked up as a child, when she often had to open old locks in their house. A few minutes later, the lock clicked. Hyman quietly opened the door. "You're insane," whispered Sun Hun, hugging her. "Completely insane." "Then we're a perfect match," whispered Hyman in reply. "Crazy and crazy. We need to get out. The guards will make rounds soon." "Are the documents safe?" "Yes." "Did you find the flash drive?" "I did. And we gathered witnesses. 8 people are ready to testify against your father." "Really?" Hope flickered in Sun Hun's eyes. "Really. But first we need to get out of here." They crept down to the first floor. A nurse appeared in the corridor, and they had to hide in a utility room, pressed against each other in the dark. "Hyman," Sun Hun whispered softly into her ear. "What I wrote in the letter." "What exactly?" "That I love you." "It's true." Hyman's heart skipped a beat. "But we agreed on a fake relationship." "We did. But it didn't turn out very fake, at least not for me." The nurse passed by, and they were able to slip out of hiding. But Sun Hun's words stuck in Hyman's mind, making her forget about the danger. "I love you too," she whispered when they reached the back door. "Really?" "Really. And that's exactly why I'm here." They slipped outside and ran toward the gap in the fence. Shouts rang out behind them, their absence had been noticed. "Faster!" commanded Sun Hun. They squeezed through the hole in the fence and rushed into the forest. Behind them, dogs barked, the alarm had been raised. "There's an old road here," said Sun Hun, pointing the way. "It leads to a bus stop." They ran along the forest path, holding hands. Hyman had never felt more alive than in that moment. Danger, adrenaline, and beside her, the man she loved. "There's the bus!" she cried, seeing headlights on the road. They burst out of the forest and flagged down a passing bus. The driver looked at their disheveled appearance with irritation but accepted the fare. Only when the bus started moving did Hyman feel that they were safe. "What now?" she asked. "Now we finish what we started," Sun Hun answered firmly. "It's time to end my father's reign once and for all." The next day, Friday, an unusual delegation arrived at the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Seoul. Grandpa Cho Byung-soo, the Sun family, 6 other witnesses, and the young couple, Sun-hun and Hae-min. Investigator Yoon Sang-min listened carefully to their testimonies and examined the documents. There's enough material to open a criminal case, he concluded. But we must act quickly. If Prosecutor Park learns of our plans, he could destroy the evidence or disappear. How much time do we have? Asked Sun-hun. A day at most. Tomorrow morning we'll conduct searches and make arrests. And what should we do? You must return to Jumseon and behave as usual. Under no circumstances should you reveal that you know anything. That was the hardest advice. How to behave normally when you know that tomorrow your father will be arrested for murder and corruption. They returned to Jumseon late in the evening. Sun-hun walked Hae-min home, and they stood by the gate for a long time, unable to part. Tomorrow everything will change, said Hae-min. When your father is arrested, you'll be free. Yes. But I don't know what will happen to us. Why? Hae-min, I'm the son of the man who killed your uncle. How will you be able to look at me, knowing that? Hae-min took his face in her hands. You are not responsible for your father's crimes. More than that, you're risking everything to restore justice. How could I not love you for that? But people will talk. Let them. We know the truth. They kissed under the stars, and Hae-min thought that no matter what happened tomorrow, she would remember this moment forever. Saturday morning began like any other. Prosecutor Park Tae-yong was having breakfast in his luxurious home, scanning the morning news. Sun-hun pretended to read a book, but in truth, he was waiting every minute for Investigator Yoon's call. By the way, said the prosecutor, without looking up from the paper, I heard you escaped from the clinic. Very foolish. I'm not sick, father. And I won't obey anyone when it comes to my personal life. We'll see. There was a threat in the prosecutor's voice. Tonight I have an important meeting with investors. You will be present. And no foolishness with that fisherman's daughter. And if I refuse? Then your precious fiancé's family will face new troubles. This time, more serious ones. Sun-hun clenched his fists but stayed silent. Just a few more hours, and it would all be over. Meanwhile, Hae-min was working at the library, trying to focus on ordinary tasks. But her thoughts kept returning to the coming arrest. What if something went wrong? What if the prosecutor had ways to escape punishment? At noon, the same inconspicuous man who had once warned her about the festival walked into the library. I hope you're ready for the consequences, he said quietly as he approached the desk. What consequences? Powerful people don't give up without a fight. Even if the prosecutor is arrested, he has allies. They may try to take revenge. Are you threatening me again? Warning you again. Be careful in the coming days. The man left, and Hae-min was left uneasy. Maybe they had underestimated the danger. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Anti-Corruption Bureau agents arrived at the prosecutor's mansion. From the window, Sun-hun watched black cars surround the estate. Prosecutor Park Tae-yong. Came a loud voice through a megaphone. You are under arrest on suspicion of murder, extortion, and corruption. The prosecutor's face went deathly pale. What does this mean? He whispered. It means that justice has finally prevailed, Sun-hun answered calmly. Investigators stormed the house with search warrants. The prosecutor tried to resist, demanded to see documents, threatened them with career consequences. But it was all useless. Park Tae-yong, said Investigator Yoon Sang-min, you are charged with the murder of Sun Dae-gun and 3 others, with receiving bribes totaling more than 3 billion won, with abuse of power, and with running a criminal organization. This is absurd. Who dared bring such charges? 8 witnesses, and your own son. The prosecutor turned to Sun-hun with an expression of boundless shock and rage. You. You betrayed your own father? I restored justice, Sun Han replied firmly. What you should have done, but instead you became a murderer. The prosecutor was handcuffed and led to the car. Before getting in, he turned to his son, You'll regret this. Everyone works for me. In a month they'll release me, and you. And I will live with a clear conscience, Sun Han interrupted him. The cars drove away with the arrested prosecutor, and Sun Han remained standing near his house, now a former home. His entire former life had collapsed in a single day. But strangely, he felt not bitterness, but relief. News of prosecutor Park Tae-yong's arrest spread through Jumseon within hours. People gathered in groups, discussing the sensational details. Many could not believe that such a powerful man could turn out to be a criminal. Hyman heard about the arrest from Mrs. Lee, who had heard it on the radio. They say his son helped the investigation, the librarian recounted excitedly. Can you imagine? Betraying your own father. Sometimes justice is more important than family ties, Hyman said quietly. In the evening, Sun Han came to Hyman's house. He looked tired but calm. It's over, he said, hugging her. My father was arrested, and so were his accomplices. The investigation has begun. And now what about you? About us? The house and accounts are frozen as evidence. But I have a little money I saved. Enough to start a new life. And what kind of life do you want? Sun Han took her hands in his. I want to marry the girl I love. I want to help people, the way my father should have. I want the children of Uncle Dae-gun to never experience what you had to endure. Those are beautiful words. But are you ready for your wife to come from a poor family? For neighbors to whisper behind your back? Hyman, you saved me. Not only from my father, but from becoming like him. If anyone whispers, let them. I know the truth. They sat on the porch, holding hands, looking at the stars. Ahead lay many difficulties, the court, public judgment, the need to build a life from scratch. But they were together, and that was what mattered. You know, Hyman said, Uncle Dae-gun would be proud. Justice has finally prevailed. Only thanks to you. If you hadn't agreed to my crazy plan, then we would never have met. Truly met. Sun Han kissed her, and in that kiss was a promise of a shared future. The trial of prosecutor Park Tae-yong lasted 3 months. Witness testimonies, documentary evidence, and recorded conversations all worked against him. His lawyers tried to prove the case was fabricated by envious rivals, but the facts were undeniable. Sun Han testified as the prosecution's main witness. It was difficult to speak of his father's crimes in the courtroom, but he maintained his dignity. Hyman supported him, sitting in the courtroom. She saw how hard every word was for him, but she knew it had to be said. When the judge announced the sentence, 15 years in prison, there was dead silence in the room. Then applause broke out. Justice had prevailed. After the trial, Sun Han and Hyman stepped onto the courthouse steps. Journalists bombarded them with questions. Mr. Park, how do you feel? Relief, Sun Han answered honestly. Finally, the victims received justice. And what about your wedding? Sun Han looked at Hyman. The wedding will take place in a month. And it will be a celebration not only for us but for everyone who believed in the triumph of justice. The wedding was indeed special. It was not held in a luxurious hotel but in a small church in Jumseon. Guests were ordinary people, fishermen, librarians, witnesses in the prosecutor's case. Hyman looked beautiful in a simple white dress they bought at the local market. Sun Han wore a modest gray suit. None of the former friends of the Park family attended. After the prosecutor's arrest, everyone turned away from his son. Do you regret it? Hyman asked as they danced their first dance to the music of an old radio. Regret what? Wealth, social status, an easy life. Sun Han held her closer. The only thing I could regret is not meeting you sooner. After the wedding, the couple settled in a small apartment near Hai-Min's parents' home. Sun Han opened a legal consulting office, helping poor people defend their rights. Hai-Min enrolled in university through part-time studies while continuing to work at the library. Life was not easy, money was always tight, work was abundant, but they were happy.